Hi, I'm Zachary Cowan, the author of the Steady Daily Books, and thanks for joining me for a look at Doctrine and Covenants, section 38, part 2. So if you haven't seen part 1, go check that out, because it's going to deal with the whole Saints moving to Ohio. So in the second part of this, section 38, the Saints, there's probably some anxiety about leaving behind businesses, farms, maybe even families. So the Lord, in verses 17 through 20, talks to the Saints about the importance of eternal inheritance. That yes, businesses are important and it's a livelihood that's important, but there are riches of eternity that you can gain by moving and following the Lord and being gathered together. And he says, if you do this, look, you get this, and then it gets passed on to your children. These attitudes, these attributes, like this opportunity to grow and attain eternal riches. And then he says this, in verse 21 and 22, he teaches the saints that when you come and you gather together, the Lord becomes your ruler and your king, and his laws become the predominant thing. And by listening to those, you will obtain freedom. Anytime we hear the Lord teach us and his laws come, the goal of that is to give us freedom. Well, some of these laws are found in verses 23 through 27. So go ahead, pause your video, and look for what are some of these laws the Lord wants us to learn that will allow us to have greater freedom. See you in just a bit. Okay, so we come back and we get this parable, which is really interesting, and this phrase that's repeated again and again, like, let everybody esteem his brother or sister as himself. Like, they've got to learn how to treat people. And in this parable, you have a man that's got all these sons, and some of his sons he clothes in nice robes, and he says, sit here, and others he clothes in rags. And the question ends with, how's this man justified? And you look at that and you're like, he's not a very good dad. And God says, look, this is me. How is it possible that my children, I have children who obey me, and yet some of them are well-to-do and some of them are not? And all of a sudden, God has kind of condemned this man, and yet he said he is this man. But his solution to the problem of this is very simple. Those children of his who are rich, they need to be able to part with their riches and esteem their others, those who are in rags, as themselves and help them. And those who are in rags, they need to be able to not be jealous, envious, or have hatred towards those others. So for the Lord, the solution is very simple. Those who have more are to help those who have less. Now, in Christianity, there's this tradition. There's heaven and there's hell. In Latter-day Saint theology, or as members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, you've got kingdoms of glory. But the idea is really interesting. When we think about heaven or hell, do you think about location or do you think about population? So there's this great parable that was brought up years ago. We're not even entirely sure who. It's attributed to some different people. But it's this parable of this delicious soup and long spoon. And a man one time has this vision, and he sees this room, a very cramped room. And in the middle of this room, with a big table, people around the edges, there are long spoons in this delicious stew, and the people are trying to feed themselves, and they can't do it because of the long spoons, and they're spilling it all over themselves, and they're getting burned, and they're angry, and they're frustrated, and they're hungry, and nobody's happy. And he hears a voice say, this is hell. Whereas the people focused on themselves, they struggled. And then a new vision opens up, and he sees the exact same room, and the exact same spoon, the exact same long-handled spoons, and the exact same pot of stew, and the people are well fed because they're feeding each other. They're using these spoons to help feed each other, and they're concerned about each other. And he hears a voice say, this is heaven. The great difference between heaven and hell is not location. The great difference is between the type of people we get who go there, who learn to care for each other. And that's what the Lord is after when he says, look, I want you to gather together so that you can be concerned about the poor and the less fortunate and those who need additional help. In verses 28 through 30, the Lord warns that there are people, there's wars and rumors of wars, but also there's secrets in people's hearts where they might be looking to harm you. With all of this, the Lord at the end of verse 30 gives one single phrase to help with this. If you're prepared, ye shall not fear. And we know that. He says, look, I want you to come to the Ohio so that you can be prepared. And here's how you're going to be prepared. I am going to endow you with power. I'm going to call and set up a hierarchical structure of the church to take care of the poor and I'm going to have you make and keep covenants in a temple so that you can become everything you're supposed to be. In fact, go ahead, pause your video, and check out verses 31 through the end of the chapter, verse 42, and look for how all these saints, what they're supposed to get as they go and are endowed with power. What are the promises that come? See you in a minute. Hey, welcome back. I hope you saw some great things in there. That is, the Lord promised to endow them with power. Look, as they gather together and they coordinate their riches, they can build temples. And when they do that, they can care for the poor. They can make covenants of sacrifice and obedience and the laws of the gospel and chastity and consecration. And they can really build bishop storehouses and start to take care of one another. They can learn how to preach the gospel and then take it forth into the world. They can be protected against their enemies. All of these things come because they gather together and then they're willing to assemble and to teach and to help each other and to esteem each other as one another. In what ways has the temple and gathering with the saints helped provide protection to you? In what ways has it taught you how to better teach the gospel? And in what ways has it given you opportunities to take care of the poor and to see people who are differently than you and to care for them and to love them? And how has that changed you and turned you into the type of person who will be ready for the condition of heaven? In fact, it turns you into the type of person that wherever you go, you help bring heaven. All right. God bless you as you go forth and do that today. Go bring heaven to wherever you go. See you next time.